Hello friends! This video is about the Deforum extension. It allows you to create a very special kind of animation. What it does is seed traveling. Every AI-generated image has a special seed, and Deforum increases the seed by one value for each further image. And the result is this kind of video then. I have used it for quite a few of my music videos. It was the first way to generate somehow animated content with AI-generated images, and I had lots of fun with this method before I switched to Animate Div. Don't expect a full-fledged tutorial. It's been a while that I have used it. It is in best case more of a Kickstarter to show the general method. And I noticed that I have become a bit rusty, so bear with me. First, some preparations. You need SD WebUI, this is what I have here, from automatic1111, or ForgeUI. I do not recommend to install the Deforum extension on the ComfyUI. I did, and it has killed my whole installation. It messed around with the Torch version, and that was it. So you better use this automatic 1111 version or ForgeUI. You need to install FFmpeg2 in case you want to generate a video. You can also render out the single images and put them together in your video editing software, but FFmpeg is recommended. Now for the Deforum extension. Go to Extensions. I have already installed it, so I am not sure. Maybe it is in the list of the available extensions. Here it is not available. As told, I cannot say if it is because I have already installed it or not. In case it is not in the list of available, go to the Deforum repository. I will link this in the description. Copy over the URL. And then we have here install from URL. Paste in the URL and click at install. As told, I have already installed it, as I can see here, the Deforum tab. When everything works well after restart, the Deforum tab should show here. So let's assume everything is installed. We are in the Deforum tab, and we should be ready to generate our first video with the default settings. Let's do it. As you can see, it goes now through image by image and generates it. As usual, I get my little FFmpeg nagger. I have Inkscape installed and this conflicts, and I was never able to solve it. Well, I need Inkscape installed, so I live with this nagger. So away with it, and video creation finishes. What this nagger here is good for, I have no idea. Away with it, and we have our video. And when you click at Show the video, then you get the result. Here it is. This is what we have produced here. This is the default workflow with the default values and the default prompt. Let's have a look where this result has landed, because this is created in the Stable Diffusion.WebUI output folder in the Image to Image tab, and here we have the result. It is here the MPEG, and the rest here is the single images, and we have even a settings file. This settings file is of interest because when you scroll down here you can load settings. And you can, of course, also load settings text. And this is what this file is good for here. This one can be loaded. But how do I? There is no file browser, just the load and save button. What you need to do is to type in or copy in the file name. Relative means the file gets stored here in the root folder of Stable Diffusion automatic1111. You can see it here, for example. These are my attempts for one of the videos. Or you can use an absolute path. This means you would need to copy this one here. And the file name, including text and backslash, and then you can load these settings here. What I usually do is to load an old file from another project, modify it, and then load it into Deforum. I have already shown the folder here. So it means I copy, for example, this here, and then load this text relative. This means I just need to copy in. Come on, let me here. Just need to copy in the file name, and then I could load it. Means when it let me, I have already mentioned that Deforum is not really backwards compatible. It can be that this file doesn't load. It was made before the latest update, and updates usually breaks the user space. Just in case, this settings file here is a simple text file. You can open it in any editor. It contains all the parameters, and from here you can then simply copy over the values or the prompt. Here is the prompt, for example, prompts, or the translation values. Well, in fact, I work the other way around most of the times. I change all the parameters here in the text file and then simply load it. I don't like the tabbing here. Too much to click. Here I have everything at once. But tabbing is of course also fine. Do as you like. Now let's have a look at the settings. In the Deforum here in the Run tab, you can use the sampler. Here you set up the steps and the width and the height of the video. Take care that you use a sampler that is fast. Euler is. And I usually go down to maybe 25 steps, since when you create videos, the time matters. The cadence here is of interest. With a cadence of 2, it generates frame 1 and frame 3 and morphs between them. With a cadence of 3, we would have frame 1 and frame 4, and frame 2 and frame 3 would be morph between frame 1 and frame 4. Note that this is no frame interpolation, but really just morphing. The keyframes tab. Here you can choose between 2D and 3D and video input and interpolation. 2D and 3D are methods for image generation, video input and interpolation for video input. I usually work with 3D space. It gives a different set of motion values, and yeah, I prefer it. The max frames is self-explaining. This is how many frames you want to generate. Here the border mode could be of interest in case you rotate, for example, around. This is Y or Z. When you rotate around the canvas, and how the border should be treated in this case. Wrap or replicate. Here is where you add the prompts. Pitfall, the last line should not contain a comma. I was trapped very often by this. Here you can enter at which frame this specific prompt here starts. What Deforum does is to morph between these keyframes. Between frame 0 and frame 30. Here, this prompt is the one that is active, and at frame 30, this prompt becomes active. And then it morphs between these two descriptions. Also, a very important tab is the init, because here you can define, for example, an init image or an initial video. I very often use an initial image. You have to define it here. I made me a special folder for exactly this needs. Here is my input image. Here is the path. This is an absolute path. You could also open a file browser here and pick an image. And what I do is then, when I create a bunch of videos, that I grab the copy, throw this away, delete this one, rename it to input image, and then this path fits already again and uses this image then. One last word to the Motion tab. You can use special formulas for different camera movement. This one here, for example, rotates a bit. And what is also of interest is that you can use keyframes. Means from keyframe 0, you have a translation x of 0.25. And after frame 200, you have a translation x of 2. I have used a combination of both in this video here. It rotates and then goes straight, and then it rotates again. Simply toy around with these values. ChatGPT might help you here. Now let's have a closer look here in the keyframes at the Strength tab, and here especially also at the Noise subtab. We have a strength value here, amount of presence, blah blah blah, and this defines how strong the prompt influences the image. And then we have a noise schedule here too. This also somehow influences this strength. And with these default values, you might run into a problem. Moment, let me show you what I mean. We start here with a relative realistic image, but the more we move, the more everything gets abstract. It decomposes. To avoid this, you could use keyframes here. Let me load a file here. And at frame 25, I have lowered the strength here. I have also added a formula. I cannot remember where I got this from. It somehow helps, so I use it. Well, that was it. This was a quick overview how I use Deforum. The rest is simply toying around with the prompt and the keyframe values. Have fun!